Hi, I'm Brett. Today we've got a really unusual update for you, and every now and then here in the workshop we're presented with some fantastic opportunities to review some cars that we did from a modification point of view quite a while ago. And this particular car behind me was a car that we did back in 1999. So here we are now, 2017. So you work out the maths. It's quite a while ago that we did the modification on this particular car. I can still remember it as much as it was yesterday at our old workshop in Belmore Street, Meadowbank, when we did this modification. In those days, it represented the pinnacle of mods to a WRX, and the car, by all means, in those days was a very, very quick car. By these days, it's still a quick car based on its age, but based on its modifications to a current model car, it's relatively tame, but still very, very unique. So let's take this opportunity and review some of the parts that have been done to this car, because you may have a car of similar model, you may be looking at some of these modifications, you may be wanting to know how long they last, or you may be wanting to get a bit of an idea of what you would expect some of these parts to last. And from our point of view, it's really good for me as the owner of MRT Performance to look at some of our parts that are over 18, 19 years old and just see how long they've lasted, because some of these parts we still manufacture and use even to this day. So in summary, it's a MY99 2-litre Subaru Impreza WRX. It's got an M8 Motec ECU, Motec dash. It's got a fully built engine. It originally had a dog box in it, but that was not in very good condition, so we've done a recent rebuild of the transmission. It had some original older design shock absorbers. They've been now replaced with MCA Reds. We've done a big birthday on the air conditioning, and effectively the owner who bought the car found out about it on our story on our website, which I can show you a link at the bottom of this video channel to have a look at what it was like when the story was done back 18 years ago. So let's just summarise some of the things at the front. It's got a front mount intercooler, which was all custom made in those days, and you can see by the detail of the welding, it was all TIG welded together and made on the car to try and make sure that we maintain as original factory ride clearance as possible. In those days, the technology was, if you wanted extractors, you had to make them yourselves, and the primaries in this system was to try and get as much speed through the extractors into the turbo to bring it on boost as early as possible. We now know these days aftermarket extractors, made in Japan, are significantly different and different design, but these are something that have lasted quite considerably well. It's got a sandwich plate to remote oil cooler, which is off the bottom of this assembly here, and I'll get my cameraman to turn around. The oil cooler is mounted upside in here, where we've tucked up the original inner guard, and the air comes in around the back of the fog light at the front of the car through this remote oil cooler. And if we come around on the inside, you can see it's got one of the very early white line adjustable sway bars, which in those days are painted blue with the 2 holes. So of course on that setting there, it's on soft, and when you move the bar pivot point forward, that actually makes it a little bit stiffer in the front end of the way the sway bar operates. You can see from this side, on the inside, it's got aftermarket replacement AP discs and calipers, which are a radial mounted caliper to give them maximum clearance, because the bolts come in from the side, running original genuine BBS wheels. So these were a pretty cool wheel in those days. And you can see the clearance inside the AP racing caliper, just how tight a fit it is. What else? It's got the white line lower chassis brace to stiffen the pickups of the lower front suspension from a geometry and a stiffness point of view. It's got one of the very early designed white line anti-lift kits, which in those days were not anodized. They were still original raw aluminium. They're not cast, they're still fully machined, but a different design look, but obviously very, very original. You can see the gearbox has had a big birthday because it's all nice and new. It's got this downpipe is still the same design we use these days. It's got the split collector up the top there, which I'll show you a still photo, comes down through a flexible joint. And this particular car, in those days, we're putting the catalytic converters in the center assembly here to bring the car on boost as early as possible. You can see it's had a little bit of damage on the bottom here, but a flexible joint, which now we use a ball joint, but still very similar design. And then we go around the back here into one of the MRT sports mufflers. Now, would you believe these are still the same barrel that we use today, making these exhaust systems here in Australia, and you can see how tight a fit it is, and still 17, 18 years later, this exhaust system is still in incredibly good condition. So what have we got around the back? So we've got the white line rear adjustable sway bar. Again, it's got the 3 settings. It's got the stiffer setting here, medium and soft. It's got the complete replacement lower control arm kit, which allows turnbuckle adjustment for the toe and the track, so you can widen the car or narrow the car and control the toe through these turnbuckles. The original factory wheel alignment mechanism has been deleted. It's got the brace that fits up in here between the original factory crossmember, because when these cars are driven hard, sometimes you get flex in the back of this crossmember which supports the rear diff. It's got a minor oil leak at this rear drive shaft seal boot here, but that's nothing significant. And of course, up around the back, it's got the replacement new Mca shock absorbers that have been fitted as well. So let's have a look up inside the front of the engine bay. You can see just what the car looks like and how the intercooler piping fits and the way the other components have been fitted when we've done the original engine upgrade. And we'll show you also the Motec dash, and you'll notice there's little things like the customer specified carbon fibre door mirrors. It's got a aluminium radiator header tank, which in those days was a replacement for the original factory ones, which were known to leak, because the original factory ones in this particular model are plastic that have a seal around the top, which based on age they start to leak, but this one was replaced very early. It's got an MRT brake support bracket, which reduces the sponginess due to the flexibility of the firewall by dispersing the longitudinal load when you put your foot on the brake pedal to the strut brace. It's got the original GFB alloy lightweight pulley kit, and because it's got Motec ECU, it's running a MAFless air intake. Now in those days it was quite common to run the Unifilter ram pod with the oil foam filter into a replacement silicon intake pipe into a turbo. And I think that turbo back then is probably it's a VF22. Now the VF22 in those days was all the rage. It was the biggest aftermarket STI turbo that you could quite easily source and fit, but they were also notorious for unreliable performance if you didn't tune the car or run your boost control settings properly. We did see a lot of those VF22s earlier on in the days have compressor blade failure if people didn't run the right wastegate settings, not wastegate, blower valve settings, and things like that. But being an MY99, you can tell it's an MY99 because it's got the offset coil packs. The earlier models had the coil packs in the middle, but being an MY99, this was the car which was the beginnings of the first ECU that we could tune with RaceROM technology. So if you've got an MY99 with a coil pack there, the good news is we can actually tune the factory ECU. If the coil pack's in the middle, unfortunately that's the earlier model which you cannot tune the factory ECU. But in this situation back then, the technology with tuning factory ECUs was still relatively new, and with the level of modifications this car had, the customer opted for a Motec replacement ECU and the dash accordingly. So it's got a rising rate pressure regulator here. You can see we've replaced a lot of the original factory hoses, which due to age were starting to get a bit secondhand. It's got the modification to the fuel delivery system. It's got bigger injectors. It's got replacement hoses for the fuel rails, which you can see it's got an aftermarket fuel rail kit. It's a little bit difficult to see in the video, but I'll take some still photos. And just some of the little things, it's got a battery isolation switch in the back here that you can turn the battery off if you want to make the car a little bit more difficult should someone want to go and borrow it. And of course from the front, now that we've fitted the Mca Shocks, you can see it's got adjustable camber at the top, and this part here, changing that setting changes this the shock ratio as far as the stiffness in the shock of the damper itself. It doesn't change the spring height or anything like that, but it changes the stiffness in the dampers. This car originally then went back up to Queensland. It's got a modification plate up in Queensland, which was quite common back then as well. But let's just have a look at inside the car. Some of the small things that were done. So it's got the carbon fibre centre dash with the Motec dash, which in those days was pretty cool technology. And it's also got factory switches for the water spray in automatic mode through the Motec, as well as manual override using factory SDI switches on the front of the intercooler itself. So there you have it. Oh, little things like those has got the SDI pedal kit. Something a little bit different. So there you have it. Oh, the other small thing. Now, this back in those days, these were very, very popular. I almost forgot about this. Just have a look at the detail underneath. This particular wing is a replica 22B adjustable rear spoiler, which allows you to adjust the angle of that top back wing. We sold hundreds and hundreds of these wings back then because they were very, very popular on the WRXs. I don't even think they're manufactured anymore because obviously this model is not as popular anymore. But I can remember building this car and we had a lot of fun building it for the owner. The person who owns it now is have bought it off a person who bought it off our original client, and it spent a lot of time sitting in storage. And it's still got relatively low kilometres, it's still the original engine. So there you have it. Bit of information about the previous model cars and what you can come to expect on what you may want to be doing to your GC8. If you want to know what parts you can get, go to our website, punch in a keyword at the search command at the top. If you want to look for Motec parts, put in the word Motec, it'll give you a list. If you want to look for GFB blow-off valve, you can put in the word GFB, or you can put in and choose your year, make and model, and the menu will give you a list of all the combined parts together. If you're looking for MCA, you can put in the word MCA. Of course, you can send us an email, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter and Instagram, but wherever you are in the world, I'm hoping you're having fun with your car. Bye for now.